Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's the first day of spring. And as a lot of us were sharing in the chat, it's beautiful. I know outside, I literally feel like I can see the flowers growing for the first time this year. So Central Oregon, it's full on spring. So hope you're enjoying the change of seasons for you are too. So thank you for coming tonight to Intentional Hiking. I'm pleased to have Janelle and Rob here from Leave No Trace. They make up one of the traveling teams of Leave No Trace, and these two are passionate outdoor recreationists who love backpacking, hiking, and camping. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the 4 Ps, which is pee, poop, periods, and personal hygiene, leaving no trace on the trail and why it matters. So I'm your host, Renee Shira Patrick, and I'm an addicted long-distance backpacker who discovered the amazing and empowering feeling of spending extended time in nature 22 years ago with my first through hike on the Appalachian Trail. I created this event series to help myself and others like you in the community to develop a culture of thoughtfulness and intention about the time we spend outside on trails. So thank you all for joining us tonight. So a couple things, please use the chat throughout the event, share any comments you might have, any reactions you have to the content. And please keep your video on or plan to turn it on during the conversation portion of tonight. Oh, sorry, I didn't have my video on. So this series is as much about building community as it is about the specific topic. So videos on, like I just did. So I think seeing each other when we get to the conversation portion of the event will help in building those connections. So I also want to thank Kelsey, who's providing back-end support tonight, who reminded me about my video. So Kelsey, give a little wave. Very grateful for your assistance. So first, I want to start with our event flow for tonight. So we are going to, first I'll have a short introduction. Then we're going to hear from Janelle and Rob with Leave No Trace. We'll have giveaways from a new outdoor gear company in Bend, Magnet Designs. And then we'll get into the conversation portion of the event for about 10 minutes. It's going to be a little bit shorter tonight because our presentation for Leave No Trace is very meaty, lots of good details. So we want to leave them time to share all the information with us. And then we'll have a wrap up. So it'll probably be about an hour and a half tonight. But if you need to take off early, please feel free to take care of your needs. So with that, for those of you who are joining for the first time, each intentional hiking event will be focused on one of the following themes: do, learn, create, be, and a regional focus. This one is a do event, focused on practicing leave no trace principles on the trail. So I'm bringing you all together through these events because I believe that we are a powerful force for change. Beyond developing an intentional hiking practice in our own personal trail experiences, I think the impacts and effects of our actions can help influence the world around us. So now I have a few questions for you. Let's see a raise of hands, either real or emoji. How many people out there are familiar with Leave No Trace principles? So you've heard it before, you're familiar with it. And how many of you regularly practice Leave No Trace when you're out on your own trips? Great, awesome. Good to see so many folks familiar. Now, how many of you have witnessed evidence of others not practicing Leave No Trace, whether that's TP bombs or trash? Yes, I think we've all found evidence. And so this one, I'm curious to hear from you. Please type it into the chat. Why do you think that is? Why are we still seeing trash and TP on trails? Is it lack of awareness? Like maybe folks haven't heard of Leave No Trace? Is it not having the right tools or preparation? Or maybe is it not caring or laziness? I'm just curious to hear what you think, why we're still seeing these issues on the trail. So thank you for sharing those thoughts. Lack of awareness. Yeah. You know, and I heard a recent, I had a recent conversation with someone and they had done a survey and they found a lot of people just don't have the tools, whether that's a trowel or they're just not prepared or don't have the tools. So yeah, I think it's just interesting to think about, you know, and as I've been a hiker and my journey in the outdoors, you know, it's a progression. So I've been there myself. I've had an emergency urge to dig a hole and couldn't get off the trail far enough, fast enough. So I know that can happen. But when that does, I do my best to like dispose of the waste properly and clean up so it's not a hazard for others to find. And I will be like open. There was a time when I first started hiking that I didn't know any better, especially that first hike. And I did things like wash my socks next to a stream with biodegradable soap. It's something I don't do now. And I acknowledge that, you know, that I made a mistake. Humans aren't perfect. We can do better though. And I think, and we can help others do better. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Janelle and Rob on, you know, what is the current advice and, you know, how do we role model that? And speaking of role modeling, I know for myself, it can be scary and intimidating. If I see someone doing something, to think about approaching them, like, how do I do that? What do I say? Like, I don't want to get into a confrontation. So yeah, I'm also interested to learning what is the current sort of suggestion or advice for when you see something happening? What can we as hikers do? How can we influence those around us? I'm guessing a lot of that is role modeling good behavior. So with that, I want to welcome Janelle and Rob to the stage, the Zoom stage, and I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for everybody for joining us this evening. We're going to share our screen, and while we're sharing our screen, don't we know we just all learn from our mistakes? Literally what Renee was saying. We have done it all as well. You know, nobody's perfect, and it's all about being aware and practicing better behaviors.
Yeah, and it is about practice, not perfection, right? We're going to make an impact no matter what we do. But if we can practice ways just to make the smallest impact possible, then the outdoor spaces we enjoy will be all the better for it. So practice, not perfection. So there's no such thing as a leave no trace emergency. We've all done things where we learned later we weren't supposed to, but that's okay. It's all part of learning.
So let's get that chat warmed up again. And why doesn't everybody share in the chat? What is your favorite way to get outside? And this will be good for us to be able to see the chat while we're on presentation mode. So. Oh,
Yeah, lots of hiking. Yeah, day hiking, fantastic. Kayaking, very cool.
We just did some tandem kayaking in the mangroves in this narrow waterway, and it really tests your relationship with your person.
Yeah, travel or go paddle a kayak or a canoe together.
Rob would he'd rather be canoeing.
Yeah, I prefer canoe over kayaks. That's just
Can't believe they skipped.
how I grew up. Yeah, nice.
Thanks everybody for sharing.
Very cool.
Car camping and hiking. I like that. Awesome. I know for me personally, my favorite way to get out is literally being on trail. And it doesn't matter if it's a day hike or backpacking. It's just kind of challenging my body.
Yeah, and the same for me, like a lot of backpacking as much as I can and as many different places I can too. And of course, I do love paddling up in the Boundary Waters, northern Minnesota. It's hard to beat that. So anytime anyone offers a backpacking trip or a paddling trip, yeah, I'm gonna try to make my way there for sure.
And we're originally from Minnesota.
Yep,
and
that's where we live, but we're on the road with Leave No Trace.
And speaking of,
yeah, Leave No Trace, just kind of a quick introductions on who we are. Obviously, Leave No Trace, a lot of people have heard the words, but they may not necessarily know that we're actually a nonprofit organization. Been around for 30 years, and 25 of those years have been partnered with Subaru. So Janelle and I are part of the education arm of Leave No Trace, and we literally travel, work, and live out of a Subaru, which you can see pictured on the screen. So we do have a rooftop tent, and then inside is pretty much our home. There's bedrooms in there, there's a kitchen in there, believe it or not. But we absolutely love this lifestyle. It really, really works for us. We realize it's not for everybody, but we love it. And we also get to do in-person workshops in addition to these virtual ones. And we get to meet just the best people because we all have, I think, the same passions in mind. So thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be going through is we're going to do a short intro on Leave No Trace and our organization. Then we're going to hit what Renee said, the 4 Ps, pee, poop, period, personal hygiene. We're going to talk about some communication and approaches to communication, and if we're courageous enough to maybe see someone on trail, and if we want to say something or not. And then a huge thing about being on trail, whether it has to do with the 4 Ps or communicating with people or just being around people, is being considerate of others. And then we have questions and answers at the end, but feel free to jump in on the chat and answer or ask away with questions as we go too. So you don't have to save them for the end. If you're anybody like me who has ADHD, I'm not going to remember at the end. So just put it in the chat.
All right. And before we go into any of our workshops, we like to take a moment to recognize the native lands that we're on, because as we share ways to be stewards of our environment, it's important to know that the natives on the lands we're on, they've been stewards here for generations. So right now we're in Helen, Georgia, and we are on the ancestral lands of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee, the Yuchi, and the Miccosukee tribes. So just a quick shout out to them. And then as we talk about Leave No Trace, we're really talking about a movement to inspire people to become better stewards while they're not only in the outdoors, but kind of in everyday life as well. Because we are all at the root of that, because there's no substitute for nature. And if there is, I haven't found one yet. And we do believe that the outdoors is for everyone and anyone. So we go into these workshops with a diversity, equity, and inclusivity into all the programs we do, because we want to make sure everyone feels safe and comfortable and know that the outdoors is for them and anyone who chooses to connect with nature.
So with that said, we are all here today because we do love the nature, and this photo kind of says a little bit about what I'm about to say is, unfortunately, our nature here is at risk. We have billions of trips into the outdoors every year, specifically in the United States. And within these trips, people are causing preventable damages. And I want to emphasize preventable because a lot of these impacts that we're seeing are preventable. And these preventable impacts, unfortunately, add up with those billions of trips done into the outdoors. So our goal with Leave No Trace as well is to change the relationship between the use and the impact. So we want people to continue to go in the outdoors and experience those positive things that for the reasons that we all go out there, but we don't want the increase to go with the impacts as well. So as use rises, we don't want the impacts to rise as well. And with that said, as far as impacts that we see, please put in the chats, what are some of the impacts that you see when you recreate outdoors?
I sense there's going to be a theme here, which is pretty common to a lot of our outdoor spaces, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social
trails, trail braiding, things like that. Yeah. Trash, of course.
Yeah, parking lots too, and trail erosion. We just saw a campfire on the Florida Trail. Literally the next day, we got there at 6 p.m. and we just, I don't know how it happened, but we put water and all of a sudden that the simmering started to happen. So it was literally 16 hours later. So someone didn't put out
Their fire all the way.
Campfire all the way.
Right.
It looked like it was out. Thankfully, we didn't step in it.
Well, yeah. Water quality, logging impacts, yes. Critters hit by cars, yes.
Yeah, and in cars.
Right. Okay.
Thank you guys for sharing your impacts. We see a lot of those, and really, it's all true. And as you read over that list in the chat, like I said, a lot of these are preventative and they're caused by humans. And what Renee said earlier, as she posed that question, what are some of the reasons why we think that happens? We could only say our jobs is really to go around and spread education for people to be mindful, and it starts with every person. And practicing Leave No Trace guidelines. And we're here with Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace is not just a concept of maybe pack it in, pack it out. It is an actual international movement and organization. So we're here in the US along with 96 other countries. So it is an international thing, and we have these 7 guiding principles that you may or may not have heard, and we're going to go through them briefly later. But these guiding principles really are the framework to making good decisions when we're in the outdoors. So when you come across a situation, how can you make the least impact? Because we're going to make impacts regardless. We're outdoors, we're using the outdoors. And we love the space, but regardless, we're going to make an impact, but literally making the least destructive impact that you can, and using these 7 principles. And really the mission of Leave No Trace is to ensure a sustainable outdoors for the United States and the planet, right? For we can continue to recreate for generations to come.
All right, so why is Leave No Trace important? That's probably a pretty big question. We find that in our research that 9 out of 10 people who recreate in the outdoors are actually unfamiliar with Leave No Trace. Sure, they know the words, they know the principle, but they don't know in detail and what nuances Leave No Trace actually means. And that's kind of where we come in, all right? As you can see by this picture, trash like this ends up in places that we really don't intend them to. I'm sure everyone has seen some version of this image, right? And we believe that these impacts are not done intentionally. Sure, there might be a very small population that may do that, but we like to give them the benefit of the doubt. These kind of impacts happen over time because when people are visiting these outdoor spaces, they may just be uninformed or misinformed about how their actions impact the environment, how their actions can impact the wildlife that live there as well. And by Leave No Trace and us providing these workshops virtually and in person, we can provide opportunity for our visitors, and we can empower them to be better stewards themselves and be part of the solution. Because the ultimate goal would be to turn visitors to the outdoors to actual stewards as well, even if it's a very, very small part. And we believe that having the tools and the education will help spur some change long term. The power of Leave No Trace. So Leave No Trace actually began a long, long time ago as a simple call to preserve our wild spaces. And now 30 years later, it's evolved into a global and a daily commitment to embrace a Leave No Trace ethic. And when I say ethic, I mean what you actually do when no one's watching. Sure, everyone will pick up their garbage if someone's watching, but will you when no one's watching? That's what I mean by your own personal ethic. But we accomplish this work by using 3 pillars, as you can see there. The first is the science and research. Now, this is where Leave No Trace lives, because the science and the research and the data is the foundation of all of our messaging, our outreach programs, our education, because that's what gives it the credibility that we're not just making stuff up, right? There's actually science and research that go behind that. If you want to know more about the science and research, there's a science and research tab right on our website. You can look at our research team and all the work that they do there. The second pillar would be training for all, which is kind of what we're doing now. Whether it's virtual or in person, we provide lots of opportunity to continue your education beyond this. And we'll actually share a link with you later where you can take a free course to learn and get into a deeper dive of the Leave No Trace principles. And then 3, deploying an extensive network of stewards. And what I mean by stewards, they could be volunteers, educators, anybody that has a connection to the outdoors.
You guys.
You guys,
yourself.
yes, us, exactly. But Leave No Trace extends beyond just your regular outdoor recreationalist. It really extends to anyone who has that connection with the wild places. So.
And then we're talking about impacts again. Leave no trace lumps are impacts that we see, and like you guys mentioned in the chat earlier, into these 6 broad areas. And the first one is wildlife impacts. And those are things such as disturbing wildlife, altering their behaviors, intentionally or unintentionally feeding wildlife. So those are examples of our impacts that we have on our wildlife. The second one is soil erosion, soil compaction, even from campfires, there's soil sterilization. The third one is vegetation impacts. So we see a lot of the loss of vegetation, especially with trail widening or social trails, like somebody mentioned earlier. And included in that is invasive species. And then the fourth one is cultural resources. And these are things that can't always be fixed or replaced, because we should always be mindful of where we're enjoying the outdoors, but there could be some historical significance there, and it really tells the past. And so we should really leave what we find and leave it for someone else to enjoy it as well. But that is something that we can't always fix if it's taken away or vandalized, unfortunately. And our fifth one is water resources. We see a lot of trash, and a lot of trash flows into the waterways, sadly, along with soap being used in the waters, and just pollution with our human waste as well, or dog waste. So those are examples of water impacts. And last but not least is other people and how they can impact us, whether it's negative or positive. Sometimes we are always saying negative things, but other people can really give us a positive experience as well. But really being considerate of others. There's overcrowding. Use is going up significantly. Maybe visit areas that aren't the most popular times, like on weekends and holidays. So those are 6 broad areas that Leave No Trace lumps into for the impacts that we all are seeing. And with that said, we like to show this slide because it really shows the significance of numbers of people visiting the outdoors. And in this slide, it shows 1.3 billion people visiting the outdoors, anywhere from, national parks down to state parks. But what is not on this slide is our urban use. So urban parks, that stuff is not trackable. And with research, it says it's about 10 times the amount. So we like to use the number 13 billion trips into the outdoors every year in the United States. So it's all the untrackables as well. People don't have the privilege of going to a national park or even a state park or preserve in some way. So they're out using their backyard, and not everybody has a backyard. So they're using their city park or even the streets. And those are also different creative ways people love and use our outdoors. And Leave No Trace has a spectrum, and everybody here in this virtual meeting is on the spectrum. So you have one side of the spectrum that has significant impacts, and then the other side is fewer impacts. And everyone here is somewhere in that spectrum, right? And our ultimate goal is to always move towards the fewer impacts side. And there's no shame wherever you are, because it really is all about knowledge and education, and then being mindful and aware of the impacts that you make, and that you can change and move slowly more towards that fewer impact side. And we talked a lot about, preventable damages and how they add up, but we could now start leaving a minimal impact, and that can be cumulative and add up over time as well, through a lot of people in a positive manner as well, and moving towards that fewer impact side of the spectrum. And here's where the fun starts.
Okay. So the principles we mentioned right at the beginning of this, these are kind of like the guidelines that really encompass all the impacts that we're seeing. And these 7 principles is something that we want people to consider. Now, they're not rules. These aren't rules that if you don't follow, then you're going to be shamed. No, these are just a set of principles, and there's a lot of nuance into these principles. It just helps you create a framework to make a better decision out there. And we're going to go through these really quickly. And
we're going to nerd out a little bit.
A little bit.
And the reason why we're going to do hand signs because they help people remember the 7 principles. Not everybody is a visual learner where they can all of a sudden just remember that and retain it. Some people have to read and listen, and then some people have to do all of the things to remember, like kinesthetic learners. So as we go, we're going to do the hand signals, and we're going to go cruise through these pretty fast, but ultimately in the end, we're only going to hit on dispose of waste properly and principle number 7, be considerate of others. But it's really important for you guys to know all 7, and hopefully you can retain it and know all the principles after.
Right.
We're done.
And you could always do a deep dive, whether it's on YouTube or right on the LNT website as well. So.
Right. So principle number 1, we'll hold up one finger because it's principle number 1, and it's plan ahead and prepare. So we're planning, we're thinking about what we need for this trip. We're writing it down in our notes, or we're throwing it in the car or packing our backpacks. So principle number 1 is plan ahead and prepare.
Principle number 2, and feel free to do these along with us. All right. Principle number 2, the 2 fingers, is you want to travel and camp on durable surfaces. So when you're in the backcountry and you're on a backpacking trip, we want you to try to stay on the trail as much as possible. That way the impacts are concentrated. And then when you do get to camp, choose an existing campsite instead of making your own, because a good campsite is actually found, not made.
And principle number 3 is dispose of waste properly. So we're picking up the trash, we're putting it in the trash can. So principle number 3 is dispose of waste properly, but there's another way. Since for most of us here are backpackers, the 3 can be now a trowel. So we're digging up our cat hole 6 to 8 inches deep. We're doing our thing, and then we're using and putting the soil back on top. So principle number 3 is dispose of waste properly.
Principle 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4. Leave what you find. Take a picture instead, or it's all cell phones, right? So 4 fingers, take a picture, leave what you find.
Principle number 5 is minimize campfire impacts. Put your fire out.
And principle number 6 is respect wildlife. We got antlers, we got ears. Wait, we got the owl. 6, respect wildlife.
And principle number 7 is be considerate of others. Be kind on the trail. Say hi. Right? Bye. Peace. So principle number 7 is be considerate of others. And then we're going to head into our principle number 3. I should have quizzed you on this. What principle is this? But it's principle number 3 is dispose of waste properly. And we're going to hit on a lot of things because in this picture, there's trash, but it's not just trash. It's human waste as well, along with something that we call gray water or sanitation water. So we're going to hit on all of those things and include the 4 Ps in there as well. Some things just to keep in mind before we keep going is if there's an existing place to go to the bathroom, such as an outhouse, a pit toilet, vaulted toilet, latrine, privy, whatever, always use that first. And also we always want to plan ahead and prepare to know what kind of regulations are there. Is it a high use area? Is a wag bag necessary? Things like that. So planning ahead and preparing on our trips is essential to the success of leaving minimal impacts. And the big number in your chat, let's quiz you. Who knows how many feet it takes to go to the bathroom away from camp, trail, and a water source?
Yeah, how many feet should you be using the restroom from a water source? Yeah.
Yeah, so yes.
Look at that. Wow, some great guesses. Some people did some homework. All right.
Yeah, and thank you for guessing and just like being courageous enough to like give it a go. It is 200 feet or
70 adult steps typically.
yeah, and we're gonna go through that. We just kind of wanted to do a little fun quiz to keep you engaged. And again, planning ahead and preparing is bringing that pack out bag, whether it's a Ziploc bag to pack your trash out, your toilet paper, and whatever else you have. So you always want to plan ahead and bring the stuff you need to pack everything out.
Right. And then how would you describe 200 feet to somebody? If you say, hey, it's 200 feet, or other than 70 big steps. How else would you tell someone what 200 feet is? You can leave that in the chat, I suppose.
Sorry, because everybody's muted. So if you were to explain it, like Rob said, what is a way that you explain 200 feet? And it's hard because we're right now virtual. If we were working with people, we'd take them outside and have them make the right steps out to see how many adult steps it takes, because we all have different strides. So in the virtual world right now, how would you explain it?
Walk 1 minute. Yeah, possible. Yeah. Any other idea? Any
Half a
other
football
suggestions?
field,
70
what's
big
the
adults.
math on
Yes,
that?
exactly.
Yeah, well, the football's in yards now, right? So we're just, oh, this United States metrics.
Right, exactly.
All right.
So it's basically, so 200 feet is about like 5 to 6 school buses. It's about 4 NBA sized basketball courts. So 200 feet is actually a lot further than most people think. One exercise you can do if you are bored enough is you can actually measure out 200 feet somewhere at home and then find what your own pace is, because it's 70 for me, but what if it's 72 for you or 62 for you if you have really, really long or long strides. So you can get your own personal pace number if you want to at home before you even go out. That way you know personally.
All right. So where do we pee and poop?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where do we pee and poop?
So you always want to go 200 feet from your camp, the trail, and a water source. Or you can get stuck like I just did last week on the Florida Trail, where I did 70 big steps and all of a sudden I'm next to a water source. What do I do? So then you have to figure it out, right? And it's all about practice. It's not about perfection. It's just doing the best that you can. And one thing that you want to keep in mind is, this is how I made a mistake, is we were up in the Alpine area in Colorado last summer. And I knew mountain goats licked rocks because they like the salt of human urine. Right. And I'm like, oh, well, there's mountain goats here, but well, I ended up going to the bathroom outside my tent
In the grass.
in the grass, and literally a minute later there was a deer, and we know it was a deer because we peeked and tried to scare it away, but there was a deer there digging up the vegetation and totally destroyed that little area, and it was all soil. So the next morning when we got up, literally it was like the size of a basketball, that where the vegetation was now gone. So it's really important that we also pee on durable surfaces. So
Rocks. Pine duff is a really, really good one because that can be disturbed. Plus it doesn't splash when you pee.
Yeah, if you're a person with a female reproductive and you're a squat peer, we know that we get splattered on. So pine duff is my way to go. It's less splatter on me. So those are just options of peeing on durable spaces, and then pooping. So we're gonna play a video a little bit on where to pee, and please give us a little grace about figuring this out. Can you guys hear us? Hear the video? Give a thumbs up.
You're enjoying the outdoors and all of a sudden, nature calls. But how do you pee outside? Where does your teepee go? Don't worry, we'll walk you through it. Human urine is largely sterile. It doesn't have the pathogens and bacteria that our solid human waste does. This is important to remember, and why we don't necessarily need to dig a cat hole when we have to pee. However, our urine can still introduce contaminants into water sources, attract animals, and cause social impacts. To minimize these impacts, there are a few things to keep in mind. To avoid social impacts, it is best to pee around 200 feet or 70 big steps away from trails, campsites, climbing routes, and any other high traffic areas. Studies have detected pharmaceuticals and other contaminants in high alpine lakes from people peeing in or around them. To protect these resources, it is also best to pee 200 feet away from natural water sources. This buffer filters these contaminants out before they reach the water.
So you guys can't see the video?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh, all right. Oh, you know what? I apologize. Let me try something.
We still see your where to pee and poop screen.
Okay.
But we just didn't see the video playing. We just heard it. Yeah.
How about, I apologize. Can you see it now? All right, you guys, a little repeat. Thank you for being flexible with us.
Oh, is that
It happens
okay?
to everyone. You're enjoying the outdoors and all of a sudden, nature calls. But how do you pee outside? Where does your teepee go? Don't worry, we'll walk you through it. Human urine is largely sterile and doesn't have the pathogens and bacteria that our solid human waste does. This is important to remember why we don't necessarily need to dig a cat hole when we have to pee. However, our urine can still introduce contaminants into water sources, attract animals, and cause social impacts. To minimize these impacts, there are a few things to keep in mind. To avoid social impacts, it is best to pee around 200 feet or 70 big steps away from trails, campsites, climbing routes, and any other high traffic areas. Studies have detected pharmaceuticals and other contaminants in high alpine lakes from people peeing in or around them. To protect these resources, it is also best to pee 200 feet away from natural water sources. This buffer filters these contaminants out before they reach the water. In many high flow waterways with over 500 cubic feet per second of flow rate, it is okay to pee in the water. This high flow rate will be enough to dilute the contaminants. Wildlife may also be attracted to our pee. Some salt-craving animals, such as mountain goats, will dig at the pee spot and try to lick up the salt, damaging the vegetation. When possible, try to pee on a durable surface, such as rocks or pine duff, rather than in vegetation to avoid this. Some recreation takes place in areas of special ecological concern, such as caves or big wall rock climbs. This requires that we pack out even our liquid human waste with the help of a wag bag. It is always a good habit to check local guidance for the areas you plan to visit. Lastly, if you decide to utilize toilet paper, make sure you have a plan for how you're going to dispose of it properly. Toilet paper can take over a year to decompose and is unsightly to other visitors. Pack it out or use a reusable pee cloth, which can be DIY'd or purchased from our store. By following these Leave No Trace tips, the next time nature calls, you'll be ready to answer.
What up, nature?
Thanks, everybody. All right.
Thank you for putting up with that.
Hopefully you don't
1.5 times.
look at my million tabs here. All right, so we're gonna reshare our screen. Going into, and Kelsey, am I all good? Is it back on the 200? Okay.
All right.
You're
And
good.
then- Thank you. We're gonna skip through this. And now we're gonna talk about where to poop outside. We briefly mentioned earlier, if there's an existing bathroom, that is your number one place to go. And if you're not in an area, that's when you want to have a trowel with you and bury and dig a cat hole 6 to 8 inches deep, maybe 4 to 6 inches in diameter wide. Really, it depends on you. And in some areas, if you plan ahead and prepare, sorry, you may have to bring a wag bag. If, let's say you're on the river in the Grand Canyon, or where we were highly encouraged in Chicago Basin in Colorado to bring wag bags because of the extreme high use of people in the area.
Right, and we'll get into wag bags a little bit more right after we talk about poop. So,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how much we talk about poop in the outdoors. I think in our everyday lives, we still talk about it a lot, but it's always a conversation that will draw a lot of different stories and opinions about it, really. So
Yeah, and it's really important in a more serious way is to be comfortable talking about it.
Yep.
One of the reasons why we want to dig a 6 to 8 inches deep a cat hole is because that's where the perfect soil type is to decompose our poop.
if your microorganisms, that's the sweet spot of where they live. And plus, it's not so deep where the sunlight can't get to it, because sunlight plays a part of it as well. So
yeah, and it's not too close to the surface where if it rains and there's rainwater and runoff, it's going to take your poo and bacteria and everything that comes with it down into our water source as well. So also it's a good thing to pee 200 feet away, because the soils naturally filter out anything by the time it gets to a water source. So that's some interesting things with poo. You should always pack it out. And you should never burn it in a campfire. That's when a lot of wildfires tend to happen, because really with the flames and the heat, just throw the toilet paper up in the air.
any kind of paper, you just get floating embers, and those actually cause quite a few forest fires. So
Now you should plan ahead and prepare and do a little poo kit. It could be as simple as mine with just a simple Ziploc bag. Or you can be fancy and go buy one that says, like Rob says, shit kit on it, you know? So you can be fancy as you want. Or you can pre-use a bag, like a stasher bag, you know, something that you can reuse over time. Now, in my poop bag, I learned how to pack it from some females up in Alaska that were my tour guides. And I just realized that I have my dirty poo from last week in there, my toilet paper. But it's not as disgusting, sorry. So anywho, we'll throw that in the garbage. What I tend to pack personally is wipes, and these should always be packed out, and my clean toilet paper, and then I'll reuse this little bag to put the dirty toilet paper in, and then ultimately into that, you know, the stuff that you just saw that I threw to the side. A little pro tip is when I use wipes to go poo, I first use it on my face and my armpits, and then I use it to clean
In that
as
order.
well. So
In that order.
in that order, I'm a multitasker, and I like to reuse that one wipe as many times as possibly can before I use it in that area. It's just great if you want to clean yourself. And let's see, any other poo tips?
Well, one thing is if you are at camp, one thing is if you have a little bit of downtime is go ahead and pre-dig, find your spot and pre-dig your hole. There are some times in the backcountry where we may not necessarily be eating the best things ever. And sometimes you have to go a little bit faster than you're intending to. So if you're at camp or have a hole dug, well, then you're going to ensure that you're disposing of that waste a lot more proper. Because if you're not prepared, sometimes you don't have the time to do that.
But if that happens, if nature calls and you don't have a hole prepared, that's okay. Poo, dig your hole after.
Right, and then you can
Scoop the poop
scoop the poop.
into the hole with a stick, and then you want to bury the stick. Also, someone mentioned car camping earlier, one of your favorite ways to get out. In the morning when I car camp and I make coffee, nature calls, I pre-dig a hole because I know what's about to happen. So pre-digging a hole is really nice and efficient. You don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. All right. Pooping video.
Oh, yes. Okay, so hopefully I can get this right. I apologize if it doesn't.
Let's talk
that
about
work?
pooping
Oh,
outside.
hold on.
If you're
hold on.
nervous because you've
Nope.
never had to poop outside before, that is totally normal.
When we
Okay.
poop outside,
Okay. Here we go. I know there's an easier transition than this, but we're gonna go with this way. I'm a former teacher and I taught during the COVID and I knew how to do Zoom very well, but it's been a few years, so I apologize.
Let's talk about pooping outside. If you're nervous because you've never had to poop outside before, that is totally normal.
When we poop outside, our goal is to avoid pollution of water sources, avoid the negative implications of someone else finding our waste, minimize the spread of disease, and maximize the rate of decomposition.
Before heading out on your outdoor adventure, learn about the area that you're going and what will be available to you when you have to poop. When you have to poop during an outdoor excursion, there are typically 3 options of where you can go.
Wherever bathroom facilities are available for you to use, always choose this option first. In areas where bathroom facilities don't exist, where you can't meet the proper disposal criteria, and where it's required by regulation, you must pack out your waste. Click here to learn more about how you can pack out your waste.
When bathroom facilities are closed or do not exist and where regulations allow, burying human waste is the most effective method to dispose of your waste properly. That is what we will be talking about in this video. Let's say that you're out on your trip. You did all your research about the area before heading out, so you already know that there are no bathroom facilities, but regulations allow you to bury your waste. It's time to poop. Now what do? Locate an inconspicuous site to dig your cow hole 200 feet, about 70 big steps from water, camp, and trails where people will be unlikely to walk or camp. Where possible, choose an elevated site where water would not normally go during runoff that will receive maximum sunlight. The heat from the sun will aid in decomposition. Avoid areas where water visibly flows, such as sandy washes, even if they are dry at the moment. Try to find a site with deep organic soil. It is usually dark and rich in color. Examples of good cat hole sites include thick undergrowth near downed logs and on a gentle hill.
Using a small garden trowel, dig a hole that is 6 to 8 inches deep, around 4 to 6 inches in diameter. At 6 to 8 inches, which is the length of this trowel, you'll hit the sweet spot in humus, the rich organic layer where there are the most microorganisms, insects, and worms that will help break down your poop at the fastest rate. Now it is time to poop. Pooping in a hole that is buried and well disguised ensures that your waste is not unsightly or smelly for other visitors, and it maximizes the rate of decomposition. While going poop, if you miss the hole, go ahead and take a stick or a rock and just move your waste into the hole and then bury those items with your waste. Never let your trowel touch your poop.
Dispose of toilet paper properly by burying it in your cat hole or packing it out. Pack out toilet paper whenever possible. When left on the surface, toilet paper can impact other visitors, attract wildlife, and cause contamination. Natural toilet paper, such as leaves, rocks, or snow, may also be used, but should be buried in your cat hole as well. Use the soil from digging your hole to bury your waste. Cover and disguise the hole with natural materials to make it look like you were never there.
When camping in a site for more than one night, or if camping with a large group, cat hole sites should be widely dispersed. While cat holes are generally recommended for most situations, there are certain times when a trench latrine might be more acceptable, such as when you're camping with young children or when camping in one area for multiple nights. Just like when we're digging a cat hole, we want to find a site that is 200 feet away from trails, water, and camp, and dig a trench that is 6 to 8 inches deep, around 4 to 6 inches wide, and as long as it needs to be. So then you deposit your waste in one end of the hole, fill it in as you go, and then extend it as you need.
To ensure that you're always prepared to poop outside, a great thing to have with you is a backcountry poop kit. Now, next time you have to poop outside, you'll be ready for anything. Enjoy your world and leave no trace.
And as I transition back to that, we were reading through the chat and I really love all those additional tips and tricks that were on there. And I forgot to mention the cooler cloth or the use of a plain bandana works as well. I was one of those stubborn people that I didn't want to buy a cooler cloth, and then I did, and it was a life changer. So I highly encourage the cooler cloth just as a female who needs it. It really is cut down on toilet paper and having to pack things out. And
then just a kind of a quick tip, if you do see a bandana or some sort of cloth hanging from someone's backpack, don't dry off your forehead or wipe your hands with it. Just leave it alone.
Again, just to reiterate with that video, the goals of pooping appropriately in the outdoors is to minimize contamination, to help with negative social impacts, and spreading disease as well. So those are some main ideas and things and purpose with pooping appropriately.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty a little bit. All right, we're going to talk about wag bags. Now, who knows what a wag bag is? Who's used a wag bag? Leave us a thumbs up if you have used a wag bag in the chat, because we're going to go into what these are.
Yeah.
Yep. Never had to. Yeah, I haven't had to use one yet either. I've been fortunate enough. But sadly, we are getting into an area where simply digging a cat hole and leaving your human waste isn't a viable option anymore. These are in the highly trafficked areas because we are seeing increased use in our trail systems and in our backcountry spaces. And if you have an area that receives 500 visits every weekend and half of them are digging cat holes, well, over the course of a summer, now you're walking on poop landmines, okay? And that's becoming a serious problem. So in a lot of high impact areas, they are actually requiring you to use a wag bag. Now, a wag bag is very simple. It's a bag you poop in and pee in when you need to, and you pack it out. Now, for those of you who aren't used to the concept, it seems disgusting. I get it. Carrying poop out? Are you kidding me? Yes, it's better than leaving the 1,000th cat hole 2 inches apart from the other ones. Now, the cool part about the new wag bags now, they actually have come a long way, is this particular bag, and there's a couple of different ones here. There's one there. In this bag, there's toilet paper, there's a wet wipe, and there's a double layering bag system. Now, these come with a powder inside, and the WAG for wag bag, it actually turns everything into a waste alleviating gel. So it turns your liquid waste and your solid waste into a gel, makes it inert. It cuts down on the odors as well, and you pack that out. Now, the interesting about these is they're not one-time use, and let me elaborate on that. You can use these for 2 or 3 occasions and then pack it out. And it's 1 per person. Don't share this with your buddy. This is yours to pack out. That way you can dispose of it when you get back to civilization and get back to your home.
And if you're really smart and you're with someone else, when they're out away, you can slip your used wag bag into their pack and then continue on and they won't know it.
You didn't hear that from us.
So if you like to play jokes on your friends, that one's money.
That was money.
Also, speaking of with wag bags, this is also great if you use a menstrual cup at all. When you're menstruating, this is a great place to dump the menstrual cup into the wag bag to continue using your menstrual cup. And if you don't have one of these, as far as people with female reproductive system and they're menstruating, same goes with digging up a hole 6 to 8 inches. You want to dump your menstrual cup in there. Anything with pads and tampons, I'm kind of moving on to the next one. Next slide, pads and tampons need to be packed out. But before we move on to more of the period situation, we are going to watch one more video. This is our last one, and I know you can't see it, so give me 1 minute. No, give me 10 seconds to go here.
There we go.
All right.
We have 4 objectives when it comes to properly disposing of human waste. First, we want to minimize the contamination of water. Second, minimize social and aesthetic impacts. Third, we want to minimize the spread of disease. And fourth, we want to maximize decomposition. When we're unable to achieve one or more of those objectives, it's best if we pack out our waste. One way to do so is with a wag bag. Some places where it's best to pack out your waste include alpine and winter environments, rivers and canyons, oceans and lakes, big walls, and even really popular trails.
Always check local regulations.
Start by opening the double bag system. They generally come with just enough TP to get your fingers dirty, so pack some extra.
These magic crystals inside gel your waste and render it inert. Might need to make yourself a throne with rocks or logs for comfort and to anchor the bag. Now squat and get her done.
Once you're done with your business, you can just deposit the toilet paper right in the bag. Go ahead and roll that up nice and tight. Oh, getting all that air out of there and seal it up. When you're done, make sure you pack it out by hiding it in your friend's pack.
Just don't forget about it like you usually do with your banana peels. Then properly dispose of it in a trash can. And don't forget to wash your hands.
All right.
Right. So you will start seeing, a lot more people using wag bags, especially in those environments that they mentioned. But even a lot of the backpacking trails that we're on, I know the Appalachian Trail, which we're near, it gets a ton of traffic, and this is starting to become a problem there. I won't be surprised if you start seeing these start hanging from bags. So hopefully all the hostels and rest up towns will probably up their sanitation efforts. So.
Yeah, it's going to become more and more
acceptable,
yeah. Prevalent. And it's fun to try it if you've never done it before. Moving on to the third P. So we've talked about pee, poop, and now periods. This is something that everybody, it doesn't matter your gender, should be comfortable talking about. And we are kind of taught the opposite, unfortunately, but this is a new generation. I worked with kids and they have no shame in their game talking about anything. So hopefully we can learn a little bit about that. And sadly, I've had a lot of friends, including myself, where my period has really hampered my experience, or I ultimately just left and went home because of it. But we shouldn't have to worry about that. And the number one question I get from people, like, what do I do when I have my period and I'm on trail for, more than 2 or 3 days? And it's something that shouldn't deter anybody to go outside, hit the trail or camp or anything. It should be really part of our everyday life, and literally in a conversation that it doesn't matter who you're talking with, it should just be kind of normalized. So pack it in, pack it out if you're using pads or tampons. Let me just move this for a sec. As if you have food storage, I personally don't put it in a bare canister, but I will put it away where I'm storing my food and away from my camp. There is a wise tale that said, and it's not true, bears are not attracted to people when they're on their period. So if that's something that makes you nervous, it's not a thing. Don't worry about it. If you have never used a menstrual cup, there's different brands, there's different sizes. So really plan months in advance and give it a try before you get going. So right now, if you're planning in June getting out there, right now would be the time to do some research and find what would work for you. And in the end, it just really saves on your stuff that you have to pack and what you have to pack out. And it's always really kind and helpful to have something in there if you're hiking with other people, you know, if something happens and they weren't fully prepared. So I often do pack some, like a tampon for somebody else just in case. And if this is, oh, we got a lot in the chat. So I know this is a thing that there's tons of questions that always have to do with it. So
Yeah, the poop tube, the PVC, climbers use that a lot. Even deep winter trips, they'll use poop tubes. And if you don't know what a poop tube is if you're going to have a lot of wag bags over the course of a week, there's actually a PVC tube that you just store it all in there, and then that tube just gets packed out. And that you can DIY that, and you can make it yourself very, very easily.
Awesome. Somebody just said their friend makes a backcountry period kit and P-cloths. I love that.
Perfect.
Then that's just like a no-brainer, you know, and then you kind of have an idea of what to pack in the future. Yes.
And you can always wait for menopause.
Yes.
Thanks, Mary.
We love you, Mary. So, yeah, feel free to write in the chat anything more. I know I have tons of conversations with my friends, not with Rob about this, but with my friends. But Rob gets to hear it from me, along with lots of ibuprofen. So, when we talk about packing things out, there's something called the FOPO bag, fear of packing out. So it really helps people, whether it's gross looking, smelly, you can have a bag prepared already to pack things out. And if you reinforce it with duct tape, you can use it over and over and over so those edges don't tear.
Right. So a full pull bag, it's different than a wag bag. A wag bag is actually to, you know, relieve yourself in. Whereas a full pull bag, you've actually saw this on a couple of the videos. It's a Ziploc bag reinforced with duct tape. And that's what's used to pack out toilet paper, even food scraps, feminine hygiene products. These are the things that you put in this bag, and then you can take that home and either empty it out and clean it, or if it's too bad, just throw the thing away.
Diapers, if you're going with.
Sure, diapers.
Family. We're just gonna kind of breeze through this. We already hit it, and I know our time is kind of going. So when you do pack a poop kit, period kit, you know, make sure you have your trowel, hand sanitizer, P-cloth, TP, pack it out. Some people use a backcountry bidet.
Yeah, bidets are starting to come along too, because it's it gets you not to use toilet paper anymore. So if you don't have to pack toilet paper, it's kind of nice.
Especially if water is really prevalent along the trail.
Or scarce, you meant, yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna hit to so part of principle number 3, we talked about human waste. Now we're gonna talk about trash.
Right. So there's a lot of things that we see on the trail, and trash is among the most of them. And every time we ask this question, there's trash is always one of the leading answers we get on what you're seeing out there. So we have a couple of activities that we like to do, whether it's virtual or in person, where we ask you, how long do you think something takes to decompose? And a lot of people are surprised by the amount of time some of these commonly littered items take. So we're going to pose the question to you. You've seen the toilet paper tulips out there, right? That's what I call them, tulips, right? How long do you think this takes to decompose if that was just discarded like that? Year, 1 year? Great guesses. 2 years?
Depends, which is true, yes.
Yes, it does depend on the environment you're in. If you're in an arid environment, like out in the desert, it's going to take a little bit longer. If you're in a hot, humid environment with a lot of rain, it could be a lot sooner. But on average, it takes 1 to 3 years to pack that out. So every time you see that, you can say, man, that's going to be there for another 3 years. So hopefully that gets people to start taking their toilet paper out as well. Orange banana peels. That's actually one of Janelle's pet peeves, is seeing orange peels just scattered along the trail, because a lot of people think, oh, it's food, right? It's something, we'll eat it. Well, not really. Orange peels aren't really part of most animals' natural diets. So when they're discarded at the edge of the trail, they're still considered trash, because it takes up to 2 years in a standard environment to decompose. If you have that number I mentioned before, 500 people visiting, and what if 200 of them are eating oranges or bananas? That's a lot of those things lying around. So we do consider that litter. We do appreciate when people pack those out. Okay.
And one of my things about that too is it's drawing wildlife into the trails and closer to people. And we don't want that to happen. If you toss it out the car, now wildlife is coming closer to the road, and then what happens, right? And then after that, not only is there an animal that gets hit by a vehicle, what preys upon animals then? We have vultures, we have birds, and then you're bringing even more animals into areas closer to humans.
Right. Now this one surprised me. Diapers. They call them disposable diapers. How long do you think those take to decompose? This one really, really surprised me. 10 years? How many? 100 years? We're getting closer.
Should we give it to him?
Yes. So this one, up to 450 years for a diaper to decompose. That's amazing. So we do like to, a lot of people like to bring their kids outside, and that's great. We want them to do that, but we also want them to keep in mind that they should pack out their diapers as well. That's where a FOPO bag will really, really come in handy. And then ultimately, plastic bottles, the single-use bottles, we see them all over the place. We see them on sides of the trails, next to water sources.
In the ocean.
In the ocean. How long does it take a plastic bottle to decompose?
Yes. I like
1,000 years, 600 years.
All right, let's just give it to you because we're
Yeah,
running short on time.
Yeah, it's indefinite, because plastic doesn't break, it doesn't decompose. It does break down, but into smaller pieces of plastic. That's why you hear things like microplastics, which is in our water column now. It's in our food pyramid, or in our food trees now. We all have microplastics in us now.
Yeah,
FYI.
and they say that we eat approximately a credit card size of plastic, or we consume a credit card size of plastic
Yeah,
a
a
week.
weight of a credit card of microplastics a week, which
Yeah.
is insane. Yeah.
So now let's get to principle number 7.
You hear that? I like to say hang loose. Okay.
Is be considerate of others.
Right. So now we all enjoy the outdoors, which is why we're here. But it is important to know that we are outdoors with a lot of other people, and we all enjoy the outdoors a little bit differently. Some like to hike, some like to bike, some like to ride horses, some like to go foraging. Now, those are all different, but they're enjoying the same spaces. And it's important to respect their enjoyment of the outdoors, just as they should do it to us. Now, we're not in the business of telling people how they should enjoy their outdoor experience. That's very, very personal to everybody, because everyone draws different meanings from their outdoor experiences. So we like to say, be considerate of others so you can enhance their experience and get them coming back and caring about the environment more. Because if they care about the outside spaces, they're going to want to take care of it a little bit more. So not only from yielding on trails, whether you're on a bike or a horse, or if you're hiking, but to being mindful about music. Not everyone wants to listen to Roy Orbison or Barry Manilow while they're hiking on whatever. And then light impacts too. So if you're at camp with a bunch of people there, white light is very, very intrusive. That's where the red lights and green lights come in handy. It'll actually preserve night vision, because night vision takes about a half hour to form, and one flash of a white light can ruin that. So those are the kind of things to be mindful and be considerate when sharing the outdoor spaces with other people.
And then now we're going to move on to communication. And we normally use this in our effective communication workshops, but some people wonder, or some people feel uncomfortable. How do we approach a situation? We see someone clearly leaving a lot of impacts, whether it's intentional or not. So we're going to watch this video. And when in this video, just take note, there's Go ahead.
Okay,
There's one.
There's two different versions, the same scenario, and one of the interactions is, what it's about authority, about you're coming from a place of authority, telling somebody that they're doing something wrong, and the next is going to be an effective way to communicate how their action actually impacts the environment. And we'll watch this quick, and we'll actually dive a little bit deeper after this.
It's really more important to see the change and the difference in the two approaches.
Can we hear that? We should.
Excuse me.
Oh, hello.
Hi, yeah, you can't have your dogs here.
I mean, they're being good and fine.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's a regulation here. Dogs aren't allowed. There was a sign when you walked in. Yeah, so dogs aren't allowed on the trail.
It's really not a big deal. It's fine. Do it all the time.
Yeah, I understand, but I have to enforce the rules for everyone. And I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. I'll just give you a warning this time, but if I see you again, I will have to give you a ticket.
Ticket's not cool. I can't afford a ticket.
Yeah. I'm
Whatever,
sorry.
whatever.
Like I said, dogs aren't allowed here.
So now check out this second version.
Hi, how's it going today?
Good. It's going really well.
Is this your first time coming out to this trail?
Yeah, actually, I just moved here and this is our first time checking out the area. It's
Wow.
beautiful.
Have you been able to see any wildlife while you've been out?
I haven't, but we really haven't been looking.
I noticed a few dogs on the trail today.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you know this, but this area is actually the lambing grounds for bighorn sheep. This is where they raise their young.
Okay.
So dogs can actually have a pretty big impact on that. Because of that, we actually don't allow dogs on this trail
Oh.
to help us kind of protect the bighorn sheep.
I mean, even if they're on a leash and close to me?
Yeah, even if they're on a leash, just the smell of them can still have an effect, and it can be very damaging to the bighorn sheep. So I know some areas around here where the wildlife isn't a concern and you can have your dogs off leash if you'd like me to kind of point you in that direction.
Yeah, that'd be great. I had no idea about the sheep.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing your part to help protect them. They're a very special animal and it helps keep this place wonderful for them to live in and for us to keep enjoying. So thank you for doing your part.
Of course. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as you notice the two different approaches, really the second approach is the kind that where you don't actually talk about the situation at first. You're building rapport or some type of relationship with the person. So you're not going at them. With Leave No Trace, we don't finger blame, we don't shame, we don't do call outs. We really don't believe that's a way to teach people and how people learn. When someone's being shamed or yelled at, most likely they're not going to continue. They're going to continue that behavior, and that might even escalate. So we really believe in approaching it kindly, being nice, building that rapport, and then if we feel comfortable, kind of explain the why. Once people understand the why in situations, then that could click in their brain and realize, oh yeah, that makes more sense.
Right, so the first interaction you saw, that came from the perception of rules. These are the rules, you should follow the rules dictate this. That's true, provided you get caught if someone's watching you, right? That's one thing. The second one put the authority on the actual resource itself. That's what the ART stands for, authority of the resource. It explained to them why what they're doing is negatively impacting the space that they're in. Because we're in that space because we value that space. So if we know why we're negatively impacting that space, that will incur a long-term behavior change, which is what we're after. So finding that commonality, approaching it conversationally, even body language. On the second one, she was more shoulder to shoulder instead of straight on, which is more confrontational. But those are the kind of things and the ways that we like to communicate. But you also have to kind of read the room. If someone's having a really, really bad day and maybe they're yelling, maybe don't approach them. Maybe that's not the time to tell them what they're doing could be done better.
And keep in mind, safety's first for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. If you're feeling heated and escalated because that really bothers you, that's also the time to not approach somebody. Really, it's when we're kind of in a good space mentally and physically.
Because if you're coming in hot, the reaction is usually the same energy is matched, where they just dig in a little and even more, what you saw in that first interaction. But if you find some commonality and explain to them how their impacts are affecting the environment, we find that to be much more effective in behavior change, basically.
Yeah, and I like that. you know, if you don't feel comfortable at all, depending on whether it's your skin color or being a female as well, or the combination, you know, I wouldn't either, because safety is number one, and I wouldn't want to worry about that. But then you can kind of just lead by example and not have to say anything at all and do your thing.
Right. And then keep in mind, you know, there's no leave no trace emergency. You know, is it going to be the end of the world if they continue that behavior at that instant? No. But so if you're not comfortable with interactions, that's fine. No need to do that. But if you are comfortable in doing these are just opportunities for you to make an impact. That's all.
And again, it's just, we can't say it enough. It's not blaming or shaming or finger pointing or call outs. It's trying to find a creative way to build that relationship and have a conversation. Last but not least, we didn't talk much about all the other principles. If you really want to educate yourself more, there's a free Leave No Trace 101 course. We have a QR code on the left. We've found out that some people aren't quite sure how to use QR codes. So open your camera on your phone and point it at there, and a link should pop up, and just press that link, and then it should go into your browser, and that page should pop up. So if you're not sure how to use QR codes, that's a good example. Otherwise, just go to lnt.org and you can take this and get a certificate as well, and pass it on to other people who you think feel like that knowledge can continually be spread, because you guys are the stewards of the land. It takes the education to be mindful and understanding our impacts and make a change. And just these are other sources. YouTube is a great source of information, and literally, if I don't know if this will work or not, but if you go on our website, nope, it didn't. There's a lot of information on the lnt.org website. So please go there and browse and search anything on the website. So if you have any questions, please feel free. Yes, thank you, Kelsey, putting the lnt.org on there. Feel free to go in the chat, add more questions. We're going to stick around for this whole thing, so we could answer them while Renee's talking. We can also just, like, you know, answer questions whenever.
Thank you so much, Janelle and Rob. This is, yeah, a lot of amazing content. I encourage folks to, follow some of those links, check out the QR code, and we'll be having these small breakout rooms soon. So that might be a great opportunity to sort of have some of these discussions and get into deeper, whether you want to talk about groovers or PVC pipes or rag bags. So yes, so much information. Thank you so much. We are going to move on to the giveaway portion of tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I want you all to get some sweet new gear. So this is a giveaway sponsored by Magnet Designs, who is a friend and a fellow thru hiker in Bend, Oregon. So Magnet, that's his trail name, started making clothing last year. So he hand makes hoodies, beanies, sleeping bag liners, and also gear for dogs, mostly because he likes to go hiking with his dogs and wants to make them comfortable. So a note about the giveaways, Magnet's actually doing a section of the PCT right now. So he'll be back in about a month. So we'll be sending out, if you win. He already made the items, but decided to jump and head out early to his hike. So we'll get those out to you probably end of April, early May. So Magnet learned how to sew 20 years ago while he was working to make artificial limbs. That was his main career. But he quit his job in 2022 to hike the PCT. And he started making clothing last year and prototypes them and tests them out on trail, which I'm sure he's doing at this moment. So I asked Magnet how he approaches his work with intention, and he shared, I'm a long distance backpacker and craft outdoor gear maker. Everything I sell is designed, tested, and built by thru hikers to be the toughest, lightest, and most practical designs available anywhere. More than just being light, tough, and practical, the ethics of the trail community are reflected in my designs. Everything I sell is handmade to order in Bend, Oregon, using USA sourced and recycled fabrics whenever possible. 0 people are exploited in the making of my garments, and he only sells direct to customer to maintain controlled prices and a low carbon footprint. So for the first giveaway opportunity, you will get one of these Bend Alpha hoodies. So he made a size medium in this beautiful teal blue. So I bought one of these, and I'm heading out on a section hike of the Idaho Centennial Trail in a few days. So I'll be testing it. I'm excited to wear it. So it's a women's size medium. And if that's not you, your friend who is a women's size medium will love you forever if you regift it. So for this first giveaway, this is a subjective question, so no right or wrong answers, and I'm going to pick someone to win. So when you're hiking and wearing the same clothes day after day, what's your hygiene technique? How do you or don't you keep yourself clean-ish? So no right or wrong answers. I'll pick an answer that speaks to me. It could be funny or disgusting, practical or admirable. How do you keep yourself clean multiple days in a row out there? And go ahead and pop things into the chat. Okay, sometimes the wet wipe to swab the deck. Yep. Wet wipes, changing underwear. LNT, bucket and bandana. Shower with clothes on. I don't. Mary, that's hardcore. Wool. Okay, yeah, wool keeps the odors down. Lots of wet wipes, air drying. Very good. Small rag and water bottle. Just because I love it, I'm gonna say Mary, I don't, is the winner. Not that I'm encouraging you to get, as dirty as you want to be, but Mary, I know Mary's an experienced backcountry hiker and former firefighter, and I'm sure she's gone long periods of time in the backcountry without bathing. But Mary, I hope you enjoy your new Alpha hoodie sometime next month. So the next giveaway, I have a random bit of trivia. And so this one, you'll get one of these beanies. So it's a unisex beanie hat. And again, answer in the chat, what happens if you use soap in a mountain, stream, or lake? What is one of the physical, biological effects of using soap in a lake or stream? There may be more than one answer, but I'm looking for one specific. I see destroys ecology, changes pH, nutrients added. Yeah, it's chemicals. I think all of those are correct. Stings the fish's eyes. Kills good bacteria. Yeah, not. So the answer that I have found was it can promote algae blooms. So the phosphates in the soap can promote algae blooms in the lakes and streams. I like stings the fishy's eyes, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you the beanie. So congrats, Erie. Okay, so big thank you to Magnet Designs for the giveaways today. We'll get your information, Mary and Erie, and we'll contact you when Magnet's ready to send those out when he's back from his PCT hike. So thank you everyone for playing along.